I know I've said this before, but how do you follow that? But a huge thank you to the Lord for the gifts that He has given the Abreu family and leading us here and bringing that invitation of the Spirit to help us as we study. We're going to continue our study of the life of King Saul and the life of perfect potential. If you missed the first sermon, or if you need the reminder, remember that he was given everything he needed to be a perfect king to lead the people of God, right? Everything. And we've been part 2 and part 3 learning of some of his mistakes. And we're going to learn of another one today as we continue his life story with the hope, not just so it's intellectual knowledge and not just so that we can laugh at or finger point at King Saul, but so we can learn from it and not make those same mistakes, right? And so why don't we have a word of prayer and we'll get into our study. Father, thank you so much for everything you've been doing throughout this week, throughout this day, throughout this service. But Lord, we are pausing again to invite you to do more. As we open your word, Lord, continue to convict our hearts, lead us in your ways. Give us wisdom and discernment from on high, Lord. We need it. We accept your Holy Spirit, who we know you want to pour out on us, Lord. Help us be more willing to accept him. Help us hear your word in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, well, the Bible states that Jesus is the Lion of Judah, and this is going to be an important part of the story that we're going to study today. So let's start in Revelation chapter 5 and notice what it says here. Revelation chapter 5 and verse 5. John says, one of the elders said to me, these are the 24 elders that he sees in heaven, do not weep, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. Now, many of us talk about, we know he's the Lion of Judah. I don't know if we've ever paused and taken the time to learn why. Why is he the Lion of Judah? But I also want you to notice that it comes with another title, doesn't it? He's not only simply the Lion of the tribe of Judah, but he's also, or the Lion is the root of David. But that can be read 2 ways, that even the tribe of Judah is the root of David. So we want to dive into this a little bit. Why? What does this have to do with Jesus? What does this have to do with the story we're going to cover today? And so let's go back to actually before David, before Saul. Let's go back to discover who Judah is. Why, of all the brothers of Joseph, the sons of Jacob, why was that line coming from Judah? Do you think it was just eeny, meeny, miny, moe? God was just like, okay, well, not Reuben. I don't like the look on his face. Or why did he choose Judah to be the line that Jesus was to come from? Well, it goes back to the character of Judah. The character of Judah. Let's go to Genesis 43 and notice this important story. Remember, Joseph is in Egypt. He has demanded that the brothers go back to their father to bring Benjamin, right? And notice what Judah says here that will teach us about his character. Genesis chapter 43 and then verse 8 and 9. Then Judah said to Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and also our little ones. I myself will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. Jacob, Israel, is worried. He believes his son Joseph is dead. He believes he's lost Joseph. And of his loving relationship he had with Rachel, there was Joseph and Benjamin. And so I'm sure, remember how spoiled he treated Joseph? Imagine now, we don't know, but imagine now how much more he's now treating Benjamin after Joseph is gone. So Benjamin's his baby. Benjamin's his special one. Of all the kids, that's my special one, right? And he won't give him up. You can't take him. What if I lose him? I can't lose my baby. I can't lose my youngest. I can't lose my last connection to Rachel. But what does Judah say? Judah substitutes himself in and says, if I cannot bring him back to you, if I cannot reconnect you to, what does he say? I'm in his place. I will be the surety. I will take the blame. I'm the one. Judah has the character of all the brothers. He has the character of the one that says, I will die in his place. My life for his. Is that going to be the mission of Jesus when is that the mission of Jesus when he's born on this planet? And so Judah becomes the son that will bring in the genealogical line to Jesus because of this character. Because he's showing the character of Christ. I will lay my life down to protect my brothers. This is important because this is actually the whole entire theme of the story of David and Goliath, the story we're going to look at today. This is the theme of that story. In fact, this is how it begins. Notice, 1 Samuel 17 and verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle, and were gathered at Socoh, which belongs to who? To Judah. They had camped between Socoh and Azekah in Ephes Dammim. Notice, where does the battle take place? In the land of which brother? The land of Judah. Now, certainly the Philistines didn't care. Israel probably wasn't thinking much about it. But God is bringing things together to teach you and I a lesson, isn't he? What is the story of David? Now, we'll talk about the story as well a little bit, but I'm coming into this sermon assuming that most of us at least know the story, the big parts of the story. And what is the theme of the story? I will lay my life down for my brothers. I will put myself in their place, right? And so it's no surprise to us as Bible students that the story takes place in the land of Judah. Because that's the theme, the character of Judah's life. It's the theme of the story. It's the theme of the ministry of Jesus when he was here on this earth. It is the theme still today for the church, isn't it? Because our job, as we were so brilliantly reminded in our Sabbath school lessons today, our job is to love, right? Our job is to love. Well, what is the greatest way to love, to demonstrate love? John 15, verse 13. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. This is the theme. This is the root of David. This is why he is who he is. This is the root that Jesus has. This is what it springs from. It all comes down to love. To be willing to lay down our own thoughts and opinions, to lay down our life even to save someone else. Maybe one of our favorite examples in modern history is this man, Desmond Doss. Was he willing to lay down his life for another? While at the same time not compromising his morals, right? I want you to remember that for where we're going in this sermon. I'm not asking you to compromise your morals. But we have to be willing to lay down our lives for other people. And not just on the battlefield. You know, Desmond Doss didn't even have to be there. He didn't have to be at Hacksaw Ridge. He didn't have to be on the island of Okinawa. He didn't have to serve. He was offered a deferment because he was a joiner in a shipyard, right? A joiner is someone who goes in and they build the insides of the ships, the furniture of the ships. He had the job of building the furniture and the wood panels and the counters inside the ships at the shipyard. And because of this job that, I don't know, to me doesn't sound that important, furniture, but he was offered a deferment. Hey, you don't have to go to war. You don't have to go lay down your life. He had a paper that said, I don't have to go. But what did he say? I'll go anyway. With the famous line, the important line, how could I live with myself when my brothers and my neighbors and my friends are going off to war and I'm sitting here building things? I will be willing to lay down my life for others. Let's continue the story of David and Goliath with verse 3. The Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. You know, this is something that we should picture in our minds, because it reminds us how many camps are there in this story. There are 2 camps. There's Israel and the Philistines. And they are both on mountains with a valley. What is the valley supposed to be for? You think they're going to fight the battle from one mountain and the other mountain? What's the valley for? The valley is the battlefield, right? It's not Megiddo, but it's like the valley of Megiddo, the Battle of Armageddon, right? It's like that. There's this valley between them, and the valley is where they are to go to battle. The valley represents the battlefield of the great controversy. Nothing can happen as long as they're on their mountains. Church, if we keep ourselves on the safe mountain and we don't get out into the valley, into the community, then we're not laying our lives down for people, are we? We've got to get off the mountain. And so you've got the great Goliath inviting Israel, let's get together here. Goliath, he's challenging them. Come down off your high horse, off your safe mountain, and come here to battle. There was safety on that mountain, but they had to get out of that safety to work or to battle that day. You know the story. Day after day, we'll read this verse in a little bit, but day after day after day, Goliath challenges and he challenges and he challenges. And what is Israel doing? They're warming their pews, aren't they? They are sitting in their seats on the safe mountain. I'm not going down there to face that giant. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. We are going to stay right here in Laodicea on our safe mountain where I'm comfortable. Right? Until a young boy, and you heard me right, I didn't say a young man, a young boy. The Bible describes him in this story as being ruddy. There's some connections in the Hebrew to prepubescent. So he's not even a man yet. His voice hasn't deepened yet. So when you read the story of David, I won't give you the same impressions, but you can hear it. It's this little boy's voice. The battle belongs to the Lord. He's this little boy in the story. He shows up and he sees everyone sitting around and like cowering and scared. And you remember he's like excitable and he's like, what are you doing here? Let's go. The Lord has presented something. Let's do it. In fact, I've never caught this before. Even though I've preached on this story many times, I've read this story dozens of times. I've read the chapter in Patriarchs and Prophets dozens of times. I never caught this before until this week. I've always pictured in my mind the Philistines are the ones challenging Israel to the fight. Do you know that's not what happened? Patriarchs and Prophets, page 644. When war was declared by who? By Israel against the Philistines. Who declared the war? Doesn't that sound so weird to know that what happens in the story? They declared war against the Philistines because they invaded the land. And then what did Israel do? They sat back and didn't want to fight the war. Church, don't let that be Adventism in 2023. We can preach the great controversy. We can preach the Sabbath. We can preach the three angels' messages, and then we just sit back and don't do anything with it. You hear what's happening there? They're declaring the war. They're saying there's going to be a battle here. We will fight you. Get off of our land. And then they just sit there. This can happen. It's possible that this happens every Sabbath, doesn't it? To the preacher and the church member. Isn't it possible that we hear the message of the Lord, that we read the Bible, we hear these things we need to do, and then what do? We don't apply it to our lives as we leave. And an hour later, after we've eaten and we're ready for our nap, and then someone's like, oh, was it a good sermon? Yeah, what was it about? God's love. That's always the answer. We can be like Israel here then if we live that way. If we hear it, we come into Sabbath school, we learn the lesson, we come to the church, we learn from the sermon, and if we don't apply it to our lives, we are like Israel, who has declared war on the Philistines and then sat there for 40 days without fighting the war. Let's go back to the story. Patriarchs and Prophets 6:44. When war was declared by Israel against the Philistines, David had been directed by an angel to save his people. He was fired with zeal to preserve the honor of the living God. Amen? Who was on fire? The old people, the old guys, Saul and Israel, or the young person? The young guy, David. Wow. The boy. He was on fire with zeal to preserve the honor of the living God. The way we, and I mean we as Americans, as our generation, as Adventists, and even as members of the Gila Mountain Church, the way we define our youth is not that way. We put labels on them as if they're lazy, they can't do anything, they're not smart, they have to do it our way. But in this story, we learn the opposite. In this story, it's the young person who's got the fire and the zeal to go out to battle while the rest of Israel is sitting around. Is the story stepping on our toes maybe today? Mine too, don't worry. I'm not young anymore either. But it's a good reminder for us. Many of us here have the wisdom and the experience. Amen. Is that needed in the church? I don't want you for a second to think that this is saying out with the old and in with the new. We have the wisdom, we have the experience, we have the resources, we have the money. But you know what we don't have? We don't have the energy. Amen? I know I'm stepping on our toes, but let's not go to sleep on it either. Amen? We don't have the energy. And we don't have the ability, per se, to work in this world. We don't have the tools necessarily to connect with people in the digital age. How many of you were on TikTok this week? Oh, come on. I know there should be at least a few hands that would go up. The people that are... Well, I was going to say people probably younger than me. But is that a good way to witness and minister? Absolutely. So we don't have what we're missing, the young families have it. And what they're missing, what? We have it. And together, the formula makes us unstoppable. Just like David was unstoppable. He had the fire, he had the energy, he had the zeal to preserve the honor of the living God. He goes out there to fight. You know the story. Goliath is decked head to toe. Too many pictures on the internet have him in like this little leather vest and this tiny little hat. And that's not the Goliath that's described in the story. He is likely 9.5 feet tall. That's 3 feet taller than me. You think I'm big. You think your neck hurts when you look up at me. 9.5 feet tall. much more muscular than I am. Much more muscular than I am. And he is decked out in armor from head to toe, with only one teeny tiny weak spot. And where is it at? Right here, because that's where he sees through his armor. Not only is he decked out head to toe in armor, but he has a shield bearer in front of him. Wow. And yet David, the boy, goes out there and slays the giant. It's an amazing story if you think about it. Too often we treat it like it's a children's story, but it's an amazing story for us as well. The faith and the energy, the excitement that he had to go out there and to free the people of God from their burden. Wow. But you know that as he goes out there, he doesn't go out there silently, does he? He goes out there. Goliath starts to make fun of him. You come at me. Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? What sticks is he talking about? Did he go out there with a stick? No, he went out there with a sling. So what sticks is he talking about? He's talking about David's arms and legs. This little scrawny boy? You think you can beat me? Did David even go out there in armor? We'll get to that in a minute, but Saul tries to put his armor. He tries to cover him with his own righteousness, but what? It burdens him down. It weighs him down. So with this little scrawny boy, don't picture me, I'm not scrawny, but this little scrawny boy comes out there with these skinny arms and legs, right? You come at me with sticks? And David presents 3 messages. Did you know this? 3 messages to Goliath. And the way the Bible translators have broken them are actually 3 verses. Let's notice these 3 messages he has for him. 1 Samuel 17, verse 45. Then David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Message number 1. And who is his focus on in message number 1? Not just on God, but on identifying who God is, right? Who is God? I underlined it for you. Who is he? He's the God of the armies of Israel. So that's message number 1 when he faces Goliath. Here is who God is. He tells him who he is. He identifies him. His second message, very next verse. This day, the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air, of the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Here's the second message. The second message is identifying who Goliath is, or what he's going to be. You will be dead and headless on the ground. Did David come out there with a sword? So to say that I will take your head from you, what's he saying? He's saying, you are going to fall before me. Goliath is fallen. And I'm going to take your sword and take your head from you. That's the second message of David. Then comes the third message of David, verse 47. Then all this assembly, who? He doesn't say some. He says every single person will know, right? All this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is whose? The Lord's. And he will give you into your hands. The third message is simple. God wins. God wins. And everyone will know that God wins. That's the third message. So David's three messages here. Sum them up. Number one, he introduces the Lord of victory. He identifies who he is. Number two, he declares Goliath fallen. And number three, there are two sides, and both will know who God is. Right? He says all the assembly, not just Israel, all those who are assembled, all of Israel and the Philistines, the two camps on the two mountains, everyone will know who God is when we're done. As Seventh-day Adventists, do we recognize these three messages? What three messages are we talking about here? We've got the three angels' messages of Revelation chapter 14, right? And do they follow the same path? Different words, certainly. They follow the same themes, absolutely. Let's read them. Let's read them before we continue on. Verse 7 of Revelation 14. Here's the first angel's message. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and springs of water. Isn't that the theme of what David is saying? Isn't David saying the judgment has come? The judgment has come for you, Goliath, right? But he starts with first identifying who God is. The first angel's message, does it identify who God is? He's the creator of everything, right? How about the second one? Is it something about Babylon or Goliath falling? Verse 8. Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Here, it identifies Babylon as fallen, and it says why it's fallen, because it's made the world drunk with the wine of the wrath of her fornication. What did David tell Goliath? You're going to fall. Why? Because you've come out here with sword, spear, and javelin. You think the Philistines were drunk with the idea that this was going to be an easy cakewalk for them? You think they were deceived? This little boy, this sticks, he's going to defeat? No, they were drunk with what they saw. They saw their champion against this little boy. They were drunk with the power that, oh, this was going to be easy. But David declares, Goliath will fall before me. The third angel's message is a bit long, but it's saying the same thing, that everyone will be in two camps and everyone will know who is God. It continues, verse 9 through 11. If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever. The results of their consequences are eternal, and they have no rest day or night who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Did you put everyone in two camps? The third angel's message? And everyone will know that the Lord is the God of victory. This is the messages of David. These are the messages of Revelation. These are the messages of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. To identify good, God. To identify evil, Satan. And to identify that God wins. And to invite everyone to victory in Jesus Christ. This is our work. And so we are in the story of David and Goliath. David is standing there as this boy, but he is, in metaphor, in symbol, he is the Seventh-day Adventist Church standing before the Goliaths of the world. Haven't you heard comments like that about our church before? Oh, I couldn't be an Adventist. You're too new of a church. Have you heard that? I've heard that. You're a new church. You're only from the 1800s. No, you're a new church. Oh, no, you guys go to church on Saturday. You guys are weird, right? You come at me with sticks, that kind of idea towards our church. We're preaching the gospel. We're preaching these messages. The three angels' messages introduces or identifies the Lord of victory. It declares Babylon fallen, and it declares there are two sides, and both will know who God is. We are in that story. 1 Samuel 17 is our story. That's our story. And it's a boy, a young man, who goes out there to fight. A young man who knows what it takes. A young man with the energy. A young man who has what it takes to bring victory. He perseveres. He has the trust and the faith in the Lord. While everyone else was running, this young boy knew what to do. Let's remember what Revelation 14, verse 12 says. Right after the three angels' messages, here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. This verse identifies who the remnant people are at the end of time. Of all of Israel who were assembled on this mountain, how many went forward to face Goliath? One. A remnant went forward. A remnant came out of Laodicea. A remnant came out away from this group on the mountain. They came out and they faced off in the valley of decision with Goliath. Here is the patience of the saints. Patience is in the Greek better understood as perseverance. Perseverance. Goliath was bigger than David. Goliath had more armor than David. Goliath had more training than David. Goliath had better, we might define it as better weapons of war than David. He had a shield bearer, David did not. Goliath had muscles, he was ripped, he was huge. David came at him with sticks, scrawny arms and legs. But the battle belonged to who? To the Lord. Are you with me today? Are you worried about where I'm going? Because you sound like you're worried. The battle belongs to who, everyone? That doesn't deserve of the Lord. That deserves of the Lord. Where's the fire? Where's the zeal that David had? Come on. Are you here? We have to have perseverance. Perseverance. We have to obey. And we have to have faith. He understood that the battle was the Lord's. He didn't go out there with the idea of, I'm good enough, I'm better, I'm this, I'm that. He says, I come out here in the name of the Lord. The battle belongs to the Lord. He had the faith of Jesus. Matthew 24, Jesus says this, but he who endures to the end shall be saved. Endures to the end. We often hear, and it is a true statement, we often hear the quote from Ellen White that the last days will be rapid ones, correct? It will go quick. Do you think it will feel quick? It is going to either be a sprint or a marathon. Time, I guess, will be a sprint. The closing moments will be rapid ones, but it will feel like a marathon. Anyone run a marathon? All 25-something miles? Good for you, a couple of you, good for you. I've done sprint marathons. That's about all this big body can handle. Typically, in a marathon, when you're standing on that line and that gun goes off, what kicks in? This adrenaline kicks in. And you have to learn not to start on this sprint, because when that adrenaline kicks in, what do you naturally want to do? You want to sprint. You start running fast, right? And then you're in the front, let's say, for the first mile. But then what happens at that mile? Then you slow down and you start to gas out. This has happened sometimes in our spiritual walk. We get baptized, and what do we have? This adrenaline, huh? We start out with this potential. We start out with this amazing feeling of, I've got this. I've given my sins away. I want to speak to Jesus everywhere I go. We have a couple who live in Albuquerque who watch our sermons from Yuma Central. Her dad goes to the Yuma Central Church. But they've been watching, and she's somewhat connected. She has been somewhat connected to the Adventist church and been around and was raised. But her husband, she told me the last 20 years, has no desire for God, no desire for religion, just stuck to his traditions. One day she was watching a sermon, Sabbath morning. She's glued to it. And all of a sudden she looks over and she's shocked to see him standing there in the living room watching the sermon too. And at some point very soon, we'll be traveling to Albuquerque to baptize them. And I chatted with him on the phone 2 weeks ago as we went through the baptismal vows and things. He's just absolutely on fire. And she texted me yesterday, Pastor, thank you for everything. But she says, he's telling everybody, everywhere he goes, he's telling everybody about the church. He's telling everybody about the Bible, telling everybody about old traditions and the truth. And she says, this made me giggle. If you've been to my evangelism, you'll know where this sentence comes from. She says, he's telling everybody, let the Bible define the Bible. Let the Bible, he has this experience. He's on fire for the Lord. He has the zeal and the energy, right? And then what happens typically? We don't want it to happen. What typically happens? And then it slows down, and then we get comfortable, and then we sit around, and then we, like the church of Ephesus, the first church of Revelation, we hear we have forgotten our first love. We've forgotten our first love. We forgot what it was like when we were a baby in Christ. We forget what it's like to be, we could be 115 years old, but you can still be a baby in Christ, right? So this isn't about actual age, but we forget what it's like to be a baby in Christ, a young person in Jesus who has this zeal and this energy. What do people who are just starting out need? They need a mentor to say, slow down, keep going though, we're going to get you going, but here's how you can endure to the end. Learn from my mistakes. I settled. I got comfortable. I got Laodicean. I don't want you to. So we can share our experience. We can share our resources, share our encouragement with them so that they can run strong the whole entire time. Amen? It's a marathon at the end, but it's one that's completed if we obey the Lord and have the faith of Jesus. We can stay strong and consistent the whole time in Jesus. David goes out there with just a sling and his stones. 5, by the way, not because he was worried he'd miss. Goliath had 4 brothers. He had 1 stone for each of them. He goes out there with a sling and 1 stone for Goliath, with his scrawny arms and all. And he wins because victory belongs to the Lord. Yes, it was his talent that God gave him. Yes, it was his experience of killing the lions and the bears and things that attacked his sheep. Yes, God gave him those experiences. But God also directed that rock to the perfect spot so that Goliath fell when it hit him. But this sermon series isn't about David, is it? So often we talk about David and Goliath, David and Goliath, David and Goliath. But we're not in the story of David yet. This is still the story of Saul. So I want to relook at this story from his perspective. Where is Saul in all of this? Well, let's notice the first descriptions of Goliath. The first thing we learn about Goliath at the beginning of the story in verse 4 And a champion went out from the camp of the Philistines named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Now, cubits is relative depending on who was measuring, but that's why we say about 9.5 feet tall. A huge guy. But other than the fact of where he's come from, his geographic location, what's the first thing we learn about Goliath? He's tall, right? Do you remember when we started this series and we learned about Saul, what the first thing we learned about Saul was? He was tall. 1 Samuel 9, verse 2. And he had a choice and handsome son whose name was Saul. There was not a more handsome person than he among the children of Israel. From his shoulders upward, he was taller than any of the people. And remember, we learned that this is why they chose him. Their heart was settled on the champion of the people, the tallest, the biggest. He must be. No one came up past his shoulders, so he must be the best choice for king. Was he the best choice for king? No, but did God give him everything he needed to be the perfect king? Absolutely. And so, notice the dichotomy here, the comparison here. You've got the tallest Philistine, and he's coming out as the champion, and he's looking for a one-on-one battle. He's not saying we are all going to come down and you all come down. He's saying, how about a one-on-one battle? I'm the champion. Send out your champion. And who's their champion? The tallest in Israel, Saul. This story never, ever should have ever been called David and Goliath. It should have been called what? Saul and Goliath. Because God had given Saul everything he needed to be the perfect king. He had the perfect potential. All he had to do was live up to it. All he had to do was to accept the gifts of God. All he had to do was obey the commands of the Lord and have the faith of Jesus Christ, right? And he would have been the champion that day. Saul was the perfect person for the job, but he rejected the Spirit, and therefore he didn't have the courage to go out to battle. Because it is, who led David out there? Remember we read this? It says, an angel of the Lord led David out there that day. That angel should have been out there for Saul, but Saul wanted nothing to do with the Spirit of God. And when one person fails, when one person's asleep, when one person's Laodicean, God will send another. Amen? I don't want that to be true for us. That's why we're having this series. We want to live up to that perfect potential. God, you've heard the spiel. We've been out here, right, for a couple decades, and the city's finally here. I found out, by the way, it's going to be a retirement village out here, a subdivision out here. I asked the county. So we've got all these homes coming in, more people. Our potential is set. God has given us everything we need, and we can learn from this story. Notice how many times Saul was invited. 1 Samuel 17, verse 16. And the Philistine drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. How many times should the Philistine have come out? One time. If he had come out one time, Saul should have been out there on day one and said, the battle belongs to the Lord. The battle belongs to the Lord. And Goliath would have dropped dead. And however God would have used the instruments that Saul used, Goliath would have been dead. But instead, it's 40 days, morning and evening. Did God send David out there on day one? When Saul refused the first invitation, did God say, all right, I'm done with Saul, send David in? How many days did he wait to send David in? He waited 40 days until the angel led David there that day by bringing food to his brothers. 40 days. His probation was still open. Saul saw this time. It was open to him. 40 days represents judgment in the Bible, right? How many days did it rain on the earth in the time of Noah? 40 days and 40 nights, right? It was a time of judgment, a time of punishment. And so Saul had this time to go out there, and in 80 invitations, twice a day for 40 days, 80 times he's invited to go out there, and we never hear once about what he's doing. What do you think he was doing? Sitting back, scared to death, wondering, how am I going to get us out of this? He's like a deer in headlights, isn't he? He has absolutely no idea what to do when he should have gone out there in faith, in the Lord, declared the messages of the Lord, and went to work. But no, it doesn't happen. So then eventually, this boy shows up. Not just any boy to him. It's not a stranger to him. This boy that has brought him so much peace. What has David been doing for Saul the last several weeks, months? Playing the harp for him. He's already a servant of God, bringing peace to the mind of an inconsistent king. And so this boy that he has this familiar relationship with, this boy that he knows, this boy that brings him peace, comes to him and is like, okay, let's go. I'll go out there. What does Saul say to him? Verse 33. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him. Why, everyone? For you are a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. So a couple of things we can learn from this. When Saul sent David out to fight Goliath, did Saul know what he was doing? Did he understand what he was doing? What was he sending this boy out to do? Thank you, that's the right answer. I thought you'd say fight, to die. He was sending this boy out to die. He declares it. There's no way you can do this. He is sending this boy to his death. Yes, I know God brings victory because David is faithful, but I'm saying let's look at it through Saul's perspective right now, not through what the Lord was doing. Saul is sending the boy, and then therefore, who else? The whole camp. To die. That's what he believes he's doing. He is willing to sacrifice not just another person, not just a human being, but a child to save himself. Wow. And he looks down upon him for being a youth, doesn't he? I want you to catch this. This is important. Does he say, you can't win because you have sticks for arms? Does he say, you can't win because you don't have the right armor? What does he say? You can't win because you are a youth. He has disdain for him because he's young. He doesn't believe in him because he's young, because he's different. And by the way, it doesn't change. When he gets out to Goliath, guess what Goliath says about him? And when the Philistine, this is verse 42, when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained, he looked down upon him. Why? For he was only a youth, ruddy and good. There's that word ruddy, that prepubescent look, and good looking. This cute little boy that Saul has sent out in his place. That should have really been a wake-up call to Saul, shouldn't it? I mean, let's be honest, even if he's wicked, even if Saul, and he is, even if he's a bad guy, isn't there still supposed to be some sort of compassion and mercy here? Some sort of personal embarrassment, right? I can't send a boy out there. Just imagine all the people outside this tent when they see me sending a boy out there. What are they all going to think of me when I send a boy and I hide back here in my tent? At the very least, I'm not saying it's a good way to make your decisions, but at the very least in his life should be a thought of this embarrassment of, all right, I guess I'll die. I can't send a boy out there. But you want to know how wicked pride is? There's pride for you. He would rather send a boy out at his own embarrassment. He would rather send a boy out there to keep himself alive, to save himself. He is willing to sacrifice the young, the youth, the child to save himself. Is this how we are supposed to look at our young people? I will take the silence as maybe humility. Because it isn't how we're supposed to see our young people, is it? Paul had a disciple. Did you know that? Jesus has disciples. By the way, they were all under the age of 30 because he was 30. In the Hebrew tradition, the Hebrew culture was that if you had disciples, they had to be younger than you. So Jesus did not choose an older generation. He chose younger people. By the way, Adventist history. When was Ellen White called to be a prophet? 67 years old? 16. William Miller, young man. We have pictures of William Miller with gray hair. That wasn't what he looked like in the 1830s. He was a young man. Rachel Oakes Preston, who brought the Sabbath message to Adventists, a teenage girl. The Adventist movement was born out of youth and young adults. Paul, back to my point, Paul had a disciple. His name was Timothy. Timothy was a young man, a boy, a teenager. And Paul tells him this in his letter, 1 Timothy 4:12. Let no one despise your what? Your youth. But be an example to the believers in word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, in purity. So I want you to notice, is Paul sharing his experience with him? Is he giving his testimony to him? He's teaching him, right? He's mentoring him. Do you see that here? Is he just giving him free rein? You're a young person. You know what to do. Go do it. Is that what he's saying? No. He says, be young. Cherish that you're young. Don't let anyone look down upon you because you're young. But here's how you do the work. He's giving him the training and the education for him to go out to do the work of God. He continues to train him as a young person in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 22. Flee also youthful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. This is our job as Adventists in a side of town that's more retirees. But you know what? When I go out to when I'm around Planet Fitness, that shopping center, have you noticed how many young people are out there? There's a lot of young families out here. I don't know why we all believe that this is a retiree side of town. Maybe past the foothills, I don't know. But in this area, this strip, there's a lot of young people around. And our job is to bring the young people in as well. I'm not saying forget anyone retired. I'm just saying we should also be bringing in young people. But what? Training them, mentoring them, showing them how to live the godly life, and training them to go use their energy for the Lord. Remember this day? This was not his baptism selfie. This was Zephaniah's sermon selfie. I was doing a series where I wanted to do some creation evolution stuff. How did I know? You think I just kind of, I'll just get to it. I knew that he had a passion for creation and evolution because I got to know him. I talked to him. I learned he loved nature and he loves all these things, and that's what he likes to do. He goes out and hike. So I'm like, hey, I want to get you involved. We got to get our young people involved. Get them up front. But the passions that God has given them, right? Remember these young guys? Joel, Matthew. They came here with passion, didn't they? They came here with excitement, didn't they? They came here with joy, didn't they? Do you miss Matthew's little updates up here and that joy he had, the excitement he had? He had this excitement when he was up here. I see 3 heads shaking. Maybe the rest of us didn't like it. I don't know. But he had this youthful excitement. He's like, and I knocked on this door and I did this and I did this. He's giving us these updates. It was great. It was wonderful. Did they need some training along the way? Ask our fire out there. Our, I want to say fire extinguisher, but our, what's the word? Fire hydrant out there. They needed some training, some mentoring, right? But they had this energy, this joy to go knock on doors, didn't they? It was a blessing to us. It really was. It was a blessing to us. They met a lot of people. A lot of Bible studies started. A lot of excitement at the beginning. Some of those young people even came to our evangelism out at Yuma Central. Little hard to see, but right in the middle in the dress is Cassie. And over on the left side of the TV screen is Victoria in the white shirt. The rest are Souls West people, but they came out to our evangelism. Victoria went to Prescott with one of our youth retreats. We connected with young people. By the way, both at Yuma Central, and many times I've heard, the young people don't like evangelism. The young people don't respond to evangelism. I have never in my life found that to be true. They do respond to evangelism, but you know how they respond to evangelism? When they get into relationships with the people who are coming to the evangelism. When they get to know people. When they connect with people. This is why it was so cool to have Souls West around. Because they connected with them. They hung out with them. They went to dinner with them. Young people are called to love the Lord and to serve the Lord. And they can be a blessing to us. Potential is set at the beginning, right? Potential is what you have at the beginning, what you look forward to in the end, but it's what you have at the beginning. It's set at the beginning, which means our young people are our potential. Our church does need younger families, doesn't it? We do. If we don't have younger families, then we have no potential. This is an important question. Even though it hurts, where will we be in 10 years? The Gila Mountain Church, where will we be in 10 years, 15 years, 20? I hope in heaven. But if we're still here, where will we be? I hope to be in heaven, but if we're still here, where will we be? There will be 10 of us. 15 of us. Well, no, the Adventist message, maybe I should say 20 years from now. We do need, correct? We need younger people. You don't hear me saying, let me first quickly, and I want to end here real quickly. Let me first say, you don't hear me saying drums. Did you hear the word drums up here? Did you hear donuts up here? Did you hear rock concert up here? No, so I'm not saying change the service. But we have to go out and get young people and engage with them and connect with them. Amen? This has to be a safe place when they come here, a safe place for them to be welcomed and loved and encouraged. Many ways we do that. I don't want you to think that everything we do is wrong. Many ways it's done. But I just want us to see their value today. The value of connecting with our community, connecting with young families. There's many different ways we can do it. If we only are active on Sabbath morning, if we only come to church and leave and come to church and leave, there is no community engagement. We must engage with our community. We've got to be out there serving people 7 days a week. Was it Bill who said that this morning? Or someone said it in Sabbath school. We're not Seventh-day Adventists. We're 7-day Adventists. Right? We should be Adventists 7 days of the week. Is the point. Let me give you just a quick thought here to close it. There's 2 slides left, this and one more. Notice that Saul, in his sin, this is sin for him. He's sending a young man out to die, but he still tries to give him his weapons of war, right? his way of doing things. 1 Samuel 17:38. So Saul clothed David with his armor, and he put a bronze helmet on his head. He also clothed him with a coat of mail. I want you to understand that those instruments of warfare were perfect for Saul, right? If Saul had gone out to fight Goliath on day one, what would he have taken out there? He would have taken that out there, and God would have used the sword of Saul to bring victory. Amen? So he had his weapons of war, and they were perfect for him. But was it perfect for David? David puts it on, and what does it become? It's a weight and a burden. And I will lovingly remind us and instruct us and encourage us and educate us that if we do things simply because it's the way we've always done it, it can become a burden to the young families. What was perfect for Saul would have been detrimental to David. If David had gone out there carrying that weight and burden, it would have really, if he'd gone out in faith, he still would have found a victory. But it wasn't what he needed, was it? Don't lose sight. Saul sent David out there to die in order to save himself. Let's not let that be what our church does. Verse 40, notice what David took out there. Then he took his staff in his hand, and he chose, he did have a stick, thank you. And he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from a brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. God had perfect armor and potential for Saul, but he had perfect instruments of war for David as well, right? But what was meant for Saul was not meant for David. What was meant for David was not meant for Saul. Hope we can learn from this story. Completely different tools. But the tools weren't the difference maker. The tools could have been a burden and a detriment to David, but it was because he went out in the name of the Lord. We can engage with our community. We can engage with our young people without, remember I said this at the beginning, without forgetting our morals. But give them the tools that they need. Not the tools that we need, but the tools that they need to do the work of the Lord in this day and to finish the work of the Lord. Amen? Let's pray. Father, give us wisdom then to learn from this. Whatever that wisdom is, Lord, let it not be our ideas and our thoughts and our opinions. But help us, Father, to hear your word, how to engage with our community, how to bring them in, and then how to properly, efficiently, in a holy way, equip them for work in this day. Help us to do so, Lord, to learn from this story. Because there is a battle going on, and the battle belongs to you. But Lord, we need you. But we need young families. Help us, Father, please, in Jesus' name. Amen.